Hey guys, how are you today? Quick rant before we dive into today's chaos. As some of you might have noticed, YouTube's algorithm has decided I'm not special anymore. Shocking, I know. So now if you don't like, comment, or do a little backflip in the algorithm's honor, this video might just vanish into the void, never to be seen again. Seriously though, even a hi or "this is wild" in the comments helps way more than you think. It tells YouTube, hey, people actually like this channel. Maybe don't hide it from everyone. That can really help push my videos out to a wider audience, not just to my subscribers. So if you enjoy these stories and want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. Now grab a drink, get comfy, and enjoy the drama. You won't want to miss this one. When I was very young, my biological mother passed away. I was so little that I don't have any memories of her. No moments to look back on. No stories of my own to tell. It's strange to think about having a mother, but not remembering her at all. Like a missing piece of my life that I never got to know. After some time, my dad met a woman named Jenny, who later became my stepmother. I consider myself incredibly lucky because Jenny wasn't just a stepmother in name. She truly welcomed me into her life with open arms. From the moment she became part of our family, she treated me like I was her own daughter. She didn't make me feel like an outsider or remind me that I wasn't her biological child. Instead, she loved and cared for me just as much as if I had been born to her. Jenny had 2 children from her previous marriage, Nick and Tanya. They were both older than me, and unlike me, they weren't happy about their mother getting remarried. While I was just a kid trying to fit into this new family, they were dealing with their own struggles, especially since their biological father was absent from their lives. He didn't seem to care about them, and I think that hurt them deeply. Instead of expressing their pain in a healthy way, they often took out their anger and frustration on the rest of us. Growing up in that household wasn't always easy. There were a lot of fights and a lot of tension. Nick and Tanya resented the situation, and unfortunately, I became the easiest target for their frustration. They would bully me in ways that seemed small to an outsider, but felt terrifying to me as a child. One of the things they used to do was lock me in the bathroom and turn off the lights from the outside. I was so little and scared of the dark, and they knew it. I remember screaming, pounding on the door, begging to be let out while they laughed on the other side. They would also take my things just to upset me. Sometimes they'd hide them, and other times they would break my dolls right in front of me, watching my reaction with satisfaction. To them, it might have been just a way to release their own hurt. But to me, it was heartbreaking. Despite everything, I held on to the love that Jenny gave me. She was my safe space in a house that didn't always feel welcoming. Looking back, I can understand why Nick and Tanya acted the way they did. But as a child, all I knew was that my step-siblings saw me as someone they could hurt, and that made growing up with them incredibly difficult. Please don't judge me for this, but I have always been scared of dogs. It's not that I don't like them. I actually think they're adorable, and I respect them like any other living creature. But deep down, there's this fear I can't shake. And it all goes back to a traumatic experience I had when I was really young. I don't want to talk more about it, but that incident left a lasting impact on me. No matter how much I try to tell myself that not all dogs are dangerous, that fear still lingers. Because of this fear, my dad made a rule in our house. Nick and Tanya weren't allowed to have a pet dog as long as they were living under his roof. He told them that once they moved out and had their own place, they could get a dog if they wanted, but not while I was there. I know this decision wasn't easy for him, and I'm sure he just wanted to protect me. But to Nick and Tanya, it felt like a punishment. They were furious. They saw it as another reason to resent me, another way in which I had ruined things for them. They never let me forget it. Almost every day, they reminded me that I was the reason they couldn't have a dog. Their words were cruel. They told me I wasn't even worth more than a dog, that they wished they could just put me down like an unwanted pet. I was just a kid, and hearing things like that from my own step-siblings hurt more than I could explain. Through all of this, the one person who never turned her back on me was Jenny. No matter how much her own children resented me, she always stood by my side. She was incredibly kind and caring, and she spent a lot of time with me, making sure I never felt completely alone in that house. She was the mother I never had the chance to remember, and I cherished every moment with her. But Nick and Tanya hated that too. Seeing their mother so close to me made them even angrier. They felt like she was being unfair, like she was choosing me over them. They would fight with her constantly, arguing that it wasn't right for them to have to share their own mother with me. They would say things like, "Why does she get to take up so much of your time?" And if only she had never been born, everything would be better. Their words cut deep, and even though I tried to block them out, they still hurt. Jenny and my dad never gave up on trying to fix our family. They knew things weren't right, and they wanted to help us all get along. So, they made us go to family therapy. They hoped that by talking things out, we could find a way to live together peacefully. But no matter how many sessions we attended, or how much effort they put in, nothing really changed. The tension in the house never went away. Nick and Tanya were stubborn, bratty, and rude. They acted like they could do whatever they wanted whenever they wanted without consequences. In their minds, the fact that their biological father was absent gave them the right to be angry at the world all the time. And instead of directing that anger toward the man who had actually abandoned them, they took it out on everyone else, on me, on my dad, and sometimes even on Jenny. They never once respected my dad. He stepped up in ways that their own father never did, but they refused to see it. My dad worked hard to provide for all of us, and despite how they treated him, he still made sure Nick and Tanya had everything they needed. He didn't just raise them, he put them through college, paying for their tuition, their books, everything. And yet, not once did they ever say thank you. Not once did they acknowledge the sacrifices he made for them. Even during their college graduation, they made it painfully clear how little they cared for him. They refused to let my dad attend. After everything he had done, they didn't even want him there to see them walk across the stage. Jenny had to go alone. And the worst part, they did invite their biological dad. The man who had never been there for them. The one who had abandoned them was the one they wanted at their big moment. But unsurprisingly, he never even bothered to show up. Once they both moved out, they cut ties with us almost completely. They barely ever visited, barely called. It was as if we had never been a part of their lives. They wanted nothing to do with us anymore, but it wasn't enough for them to just leave. Nick wanted Jenny to leave too. He told her she should move out and separate from my dad. In his mind, my dad had already done his part. Since my dad had paid for their education and set them up for their future, they didn't need him anymore. But Nick didn't just want his mother to leave. He wanted her to make my dad suffer. He insisted that she divorce him and take everything she could. He wanted her to drag my dad through a messy separation just to make sure he paid a price for daring to be in their lives. It was never enough for them to just walk away. They wanted my dad to feel their bitterness, to feel punished for something he never did wrong. Thankfully, Jenny didn't listen to Nick's cruel demands. She stayed with my dad, refusing to turn her back on him after everything they had been through together. But that didn't mean things were easy. My dad was deeply hurt by how ungrateful her children had been. He had done so much for them, not because he had to, but because he genuinely cared. And yet, in the end, they treated him like he was nothing more than a walking wallet. It was painful for him to realize that they had never truly seen him as family. After everything, my dad made a decision. He wasn't going to chase after them anymore. If they saw him as nothing more than a source of money, then he didn't want to be part of their lives. He had spent years trying to build a relationship with them, giving them love, support, and financial stability only to be repaid with disrespect and entitlement. It was clear that no matter what he did, they would never appreciate him. So, he chose to let go. This, of course, made my step-siblings hate me even more. To them, it was my fault that their mother stayed with my dad. My fault that he had cut them off. My fault that they no longer had a man they could manipulate for money. For years, they completely ignored me as if I didn't even exist. But even worse, they also shut Jenny out of their lives. For a mother, there is nothing more heartbreaking than being rejected by your own children. Jenny loved them deeply, no matter how they treated her, and she still wanted to be part of their lives, but they refused to have anything to do with her. When Tanya got married, she made the cruelest decision of all. She didn't invite her own mother to the wedding. No matter how much Jenny begged, no matter how much she tried to reach out, Tanya wouldn't budge. She didn't want her there. It was honestly heartbreaking to watch. Ginny had spent her whole life loving and caring for her children, and in the end, they abandoned her just because she didn't give in to their selfish demands. I could see how much it hurt her, how much it broke her heart, but there was nothing I could do to fix it. Through it all, my dad and I stood by Jenny. We supported her, comforted her, and reminded her that she wasn't alone. Even if her biological children had turned their backs on her, we never would. She had been there for me when I needed a mother, and now it was my turn to be there for her. Then last year, something unexpected happened. Nick reached out to Jenny. After years of cutting her off, he suddenly wanted to talk to her again. But it wasn't because he had a change of heart, or because he felt guilty for the way he had treated her. No, it was because he needed something. Nick and his wife had just had a baby, and he told Jenny that not only did he want her to meet her grandson, but he also needed her to step up as a grandmother. He wanted her to babysit his child so that he and his wife wouldn't have to spend money on a nanny. Raising a child was expensive, and instead of paying for professional childcare, he decided that his mother should do it for free. Anyone with common sense could see what was happening. Nick didn't reach out because he missed his mother or wanted to make amends. He reached out because he saw her as a convenient, unpaid babysitter. But Jenny, after years of missing her children and longing to be part of their lives again, was too desperate to reconnect to see the truth. She readily agreed, eager for the chance to be involved in her grandson's life. So, every single day, Jenny would drive to Nick's house and spend hours taking care of the baby. She wasn't paid for it, and she never asked to be. She just wanted to be there for her son and grandson, hoping that this would finally be her chance to mend their broken relationship. But Nick and his wife didn't treat her with gratitude or appreciation. If Jenny didn't do things exactly the way they wanted, if she made even the smallest mistake, they would yell at her. They treated her like an employee rather than a mother or grandmother. My dad and I could see what was happening. We told Jenny over and over again that she was being taken advantage of. We reminded her that Nick had ignored her for years, that he had cut her out of his life without a second thought. And now he was only back because he needed free childcare. But no matter how much we warned her, she wouldn't listen. She wanted so badly to believe that her son finally cared about her again, and that hope blinded her to the reality of the situation. During this time, I was in college and no longer living at home, which naturally created some distance between me and Jenny. But it wasn't just physical distance. Something was changing between us. She no longer called me the way she used to. And when I did come home for the holidays, it felt like she was barely there. Most of the time, she was either staying over at Nick's place or Tanya's, helping them with their children, or spending time with them at family gatherings. But those gatherings never included me or my dad. It was as if we had been quietly pushed out of the picture. While she was reconnecting with her biological children, my dad and I were being left behind. It hurt. For years, Jenny had been my safe place. The one person who always stood by me when Nick and Tanya made me feel unwanted. Now, it felt like she was choosing them over us. My dad noticed it too, and whenever he confronted her about it, she would get defensive. She told him that the last time she had supported us, she had almost lost both her children. Now that she finally had them back in her life, she didn't want to risk losing them again. It was painful to hear that. It was as if she had made a choice. Her biological children and grandchildren now came first, and we were now an afterthought. My dad, the man who had stood by her through everything, who had loved and supported her unconditionally, was suddenly not as important anymore. And as for me, the girl she once called her daughter, the one she had protected and comforted all those years ago, I was now on the outside looking in. It felt like a betrayal. I had always believed that no matter what happened, Jenny and I would always be family. But now, it seemed like her priorities had shifted. She was willing to do anything to keep her biological children happy, even if it meant shutting us out. And that realization hurt more than I could ever put into words. Jenny didn't even bother attending my college graduation, even after I personally invited her. I tried not to take it too hard, telling myself that maybe she was busy or had other things going on. But deep down, it hurt. It felt like another sign that our bond was slipping away. Thankfully, my dad was there for me. He cheered me on, took pictures, and made sure I felt special on my big day. His presence meant everything to me, but I couldn't shake the sadness that came with knowing Ginny had chosen not to be there. After graduation, I got a job in a new city, which meant I had to move. My dad was incredibly supportive. He helped me pack, travel, and settle into my new apartment. But Jenny, she never even called. Not once did she check in to see how I was doing, ask if I needed anything, or even wish me luck on this new chapter of my life. It was as if I no longer existed in her world. I didn't want to believe that she had completely shut me out. So I kept trying. I called her, sent her messages, and tried to stay in touch because despite everything, I still cared. I wanted to be there for her, just like she had once been there for me. But no matter how much I reached out, it felt one-sided. What finally broke me? What made me realize that our relationship was truly over was her birthday. She had a celebration, but she didn't invite me or my dad. It was just her and her biological children. She posted pictures all over social media, smiling with Nick and Tanya, and writing about how proud she was of her children. I can't even begin to describe how much that hurt. It wasn't just the fact that she left us out. It was that she made it so clear that, in her eyes, we weren't her family anymore. I had spent so many years thinking of her as my mother, believing that we had a bond that went beyond blood. But at that moment, I realized that maybe I'd been wrong all along. Maybe I had never truly been her daughter in the way that I had always hoped. After that, I decided to take a step back. I had spent so much time trying to hold on to a relationship with Jenny, but it was clear that she had already let go. There was no point in forcing something that only I seemed to care about. Ever since then, she has never wished me a happy birthday or even checked up on me. No calls, no messages, nothing. It was as if I had completely disappeared from her life. The woman who once treated me like her own daughter now acted like I didn't exist. As for her relationship with my dad, it had changed too. At this point, they were more like roommates than husband and wife. There was no warmth between them anymore. No real connection. Jenny spent most of her time at Nick and Tanya's beck and call. She had become their personal babysitter, always on duty, always available whenever they needed her. Nick and Tanya took full advantage of this. They would go on vacations, leaving their kids with Jenny for days at a time, knowing she would never say no. She was constantly running around after their children, dedicating all her time and energy to them, while my dad was left alone at home. It was frustrating to watch. My dad had given so much to Jenny and her kids, had loved and supported them for years. And yet, in the end, this was how they treated him. And Jenny, she didn't seem to care. She was so focused on making up for lost time with Nick and Tanya that she didn't see how much she was neglecting the man who had always been there for her. At this point, I've stopped trying. I've stopped waiting for her to care. Stopped hoping that one day she'll remember that I was once part of her life, too. Because the truth is, she made her choice. And now I have to make mine. Recently, Jin's father, her last living parent, passed away. Even though we barely had a relationship at this point, I still made the effort to fly down for the funeral. No matter what had happened between us, I wanted to pay my respects to her father. Jenny was absolutely heartbroken. No matter how old we get, losing a parent is never easy, and I could see the grief weighing heavily on her. But what shocked me the most was that during the funeral, her children were nowhere to be seen. When my dad asked Jenny about it, she sighed and told him that Nick and Tanya were apparently caught up with work or too busy to attend. Too busy to attend their own grandfather's funeral. It was unbelievable. After everything Jenny had done for them, after she had put them above everyone else in her life, they couldn't even spare a single day to be there for her in her darkest moment. It was inhumane. Jenny had spent years prioritizing her biological children over everything else. And now, when she needed them the most, they were nowhere to be found. Later that day, the lawyer read out her father's will, and Jenny discovered that he had left her everything, all of his assets, his home, everything he owned. I couldn't help but wonder if this was why her children had chosen not to come. Had they already known? Had they decided that since they weren't getting anything, it wasn't worth their time? Back at home, I did my best to console her despite everything, couldn't just ignore her pain. She had been a mother to me once, and for those few days, I let go of all the past hurt and focused on being there for her. I sat with her, listened to her, and supported her in any way I could. Even though I knew things would go back to the way they were once I left, for that brief moment, I wanted to be the person she could lean on. Then, out of nowhere yesterday, Jenny called me. It was the first time she had reached out to me in years. After all this time, after birthdays missed, after being ignored, after watching her choose her biological children over and over again, she suddenly seemed curious about my life. Mind you, she had never once called me or visited me since I moved away. Not even once. But now, after the funeral, she suddenly cared. I didn't know what to expect, but I answered the phone anyway. I kept my tone polite as I responded to her questions. She asked how I was doing, where I was working, and how life had been for me. I answered everything calmly, but in the back of my mind, I kept wondering why now. She then started apologizing to me out of the blue. Her voice cracked as she told me how much she had missed talking to me, how she couldn't believe how much I had grown and matured. She admitted that she had made a mistake, that she had ignored me for years, that she had let her children come between us, and that she deeply regretted it. She said she was sorry for not being there for me and for pushing me aside. I didn't know what to say. I had spent so many years mourning the mother figure I had lost. And now here she was asking me to forgive her. Then she asked me if I could accept her as my mother again, if I could let go of the past and rebuild our relationship. I was stunned. After everything, after all the pain and neglect, she suddenly wanted to come back into my life. But the question that haunted me was why now? Why, after all these years, was she choosing to apologize? Was it truly because she missed me? Or was it because she was finally realizing that the children she had prioritized had never truly cared about her the way she thought they did? I wasn't sure how to respond, so I asked her to give me some time to think about it. Jenny said she understood that she would wait for as long as I needed. But even after the call ended, I felt conflicted. Now that I've had time to think about it, I don't know if I want to accept her as my mother again. To be frank, a part of me wants to believe her. To believe that she truly regrets everything and wants to make things right. But another part of me, the part that still carries all the hurt, the rejection, the years of being forgotten, is hesitating. It's not that I don't believe she's sorry. It's just that I don't know if I can ever trust her not to hurt me again. For years, I tried so hard to keep her in my life. I called, I texted, I reached out, only to be ignored. She never made an effort for me, not once. I watched as she built a life with the children who had bullied and mistreated me while I was left behind, like I never mattered. And now when it seems like they have no real use for her anymore, suddenly I matter to her again. I don't know if I can open my heart to her, only to risk having it broken all over again. I spent so long grieving the loss of the mother I thought I had, and I don't know if I have the strength to go through that kind of pain again. So, am I an a-hole? Honestly, OP owes her nothing. She chose her kids over and over again, even when they treated OP and OP's dad like garbage. Now that they've drained her dry, she's running back to the one person who won't use her. That's not love. That's desperation. OP need to protect her peace. OP has already mourned the mother she could have been, so she shouldn't reopen that wound. And now let's hear community's opinion. I think you handled this with incredible grace. You're not being cruel by setting boundaries. You're being smart. If she truly wanted a relationship, she wouldn't have waited until her golden children abandoned her. You can forgive her without letting her back into your life. Forgiveness doesn't mean access. I relate to this so much it hurts. The blood-first mindset ruins so many good relationships. You were a child, and she failed to protect you from her kids' cruelty. That's not something you can just sweep under the rug because she's lonely now. Healing means not letting the same people hurt you twice. She's only sorry because her plan backfired. Her kids used her, and now she's looking for emotional support from the one person she tossed aside. Don't fall for it. People like that don't change. They just run out of options. Keep your distance and let her face the consequences of her own choices. Update. I just wanted to start by saying how thankful I am to all of you for your kind and thoughtful comments. Reading through your words has given me a lot of comfort and clarity. It means so much to know that there are people out there who understand what I've been through and support me in whatever decision I make. Over the past few years, I've been going to therapy and working on healing myself. It hasn't been easy, but I've made real progress. I've learned to set boundaries, to process my emotions, and to understand that I am not responsible for the way others have treated me. That's also one of the biggest reasons why I'm so scared to open this door again. If I let Ginny back into my life, I know there's a chance that her two devil children, Nick and Tanya, will come back with her. And that terrifies me. I have worked so hard to move on from them and everything they put me through. The bullying, the cruelty, the way they made me feel like I was worthless. It took me years to unlearn all of that. I've built a life without them in it. And I don't know if I can handle their presence again. I don't know if I can go back to being the girl they tormented, the one who was always on the outside looking in. I finally started to feel free, and I don't want to risk losing that just because Ginny suddenly decided she wants me back in her life. Is she truly sorry, or is she just looking for another safety net now that her children have abandoned her? These are the thoughts that keep running through my mind. I just don't know what to do. Update 2. Okay, last night I had a long conversation with my dad. I told him everything, how Ginny had called me out of the blue, how she apologized for everything, and how she asked me if I could forgive her and accept her as my mother again. My dad listened quietly, and when I finally finished talking, he let out a deep sigh and told me the truth. The real reason Ginny was suddenly feeling so nostalgic and missing me wasn't just guilt or regret. It wasn't because she had finally come to her senses about how she had treated me. It was because of money. After Ginny inherited everything from her father, Nick and Tanya found out, and unsurprisingly, they immediately started demanding their share. Apparently, they've been pressuring her non-stop, guilt, tripping her, manipulating her, and even outright demanding that she hand over a portion of the inheritance to them. My dad said that they've been relentless, treating her exactly the way they used to treat him, like an ATM, like a resource to be drained until there's nothing left. And now that she's feeling cornered by them, she's running back to me. Everything suddenly made sense. She had ignored me for years, abandoned me when I needed her the most. And only now, when she was feeling used and alone, did she remember that I existed. She wasn't reaching out because she genuinely wanted to fix things. She was reaching out because she needed another source of emotional support now that her children were treating her like trash. At the end, my dad said that he didn't want to tell me what to do, but he urged that whatever was decided, I shouldn't be used by her the way she was used by them. Update 3. It's been 2 months since the conversation with my dad, and I wanted to give an update on what's happened since then. After learning the real reason why Ginny suddenly wanted to reconnect with me, I made the decision to cut contact with her. I didn't call her back, I didn't text, and I certainly didn't try to mend things. At first, I felt guilty. There was still a part of me that remembered the version of her who had once loved me, the mother figure I had cherished as a child. But every time I felt myself wavering, I reminded myself of the truth. She had no problem forgetting about me when she had everything she wanted. She only remembered me when she had something to lose. Apparently, my silence didn't go unnoticed. A few weeks after I went no contact, Jenny started calling and texting me repeatedly. Her messages were filled with apologies, telling me how much she missed me and how she wanted us to talk. Then, as expected, her children escalated things. Nick and Tanya, who had been hounding Jenny for money, found out that she had been trying to reach out to me. From what my dad told me, they lost it. They accused her of trying to leave them behind, of wanting to replace them with me, and even threatened to cut her off completely if she didn't prioritize them. Mind you, these were the same children who ignored her when their grandfather passed. The same ones who only cared about her as long as she was useful to them. And the worst part, Jenny gave in. Just like before, she chose them. After weeks of chasing after me, once her children started putting pressure on her, she stopped calling. No more texts, no more voicemails, nothing. She completely backed off. It was like the past 2 months had never even happened. I was only an option for her when she had no one else. The second she thought she had a chance with Nick and Tanya again, I became invisible to her all over again. And you know what? I'm okay with that. For the first time in my life, I see things clearly. Jenny was never truly my mother. She may have stepped into that role for a time, but when it came down to it, I was never a priority for her. I was just a backup plan. I don't regret my decision. I don't miss the anxiety of wondering whether I mattered to her. And after everything, I finally understand that losing Ginny isn't my loss. It's hers.